Hello, everybody. There were two things that occurred to me that I wanted to share with you. And first of all, I'm not outside because I live in Southern California and we are in the middle of a heat wave. And I'm finding a way to make a little cooler out there. But so for today, I'm in the lovely world of air conditioning and very grateful for it. And also, we have solar, we have complete solar, and we have a backup battery. And so I feel justified in using my air conditioning. But so there's that. So I had the great fortune of seeing the Mary Oliver documentary last week. There's a new documentary about Mary Oliver, the poet Mary Oliver, which is extraordinary and just really wonderful. And she has many, many wonderful poems that that I'm familiar with. But one thing she said in the documentary applies directly to us, which is that attention without feeling is just a thought. And I loved that. And for the connection, because our eyeballs, we think, everybody wants our eyeballs, but they don't want our feelings, that accompany, they don't want the person, they just want the eyeballs. And then also when we're using our attention, if it's connected to your heart energy, it's connected to your intention, it's connected to what you're enjoying and experiencing inside, then your attention has great power. And which led me to the second thing that I want to share with you, which was yesterday. I was standing over by the door in our bedroom, and we have this wonderful pillow for our cat Allie. It's heated and it's round and it's a therapeutic pillow, and she absolutely loves it. And she was on it, and I was looking over at her, and I was just loving and appreciating her. And she had her eyes closed, and so as I was looking at her, I felt her start to stir, and she started to purr, and then she opened her eyes and looked at me. And so I knew that I hadn't said anything. I was simply giving her my attention that came with this great love that I have for her, and she got it. And so for me, it was such a reminder of the power of our embodied attention. And so I would love for you to let your attention come into your body and just noticing what the flow of energy is, what sensations are most prominent to you right now, if there are any emotions, because sensations are just a bunch of emotions are a bunch of sensations moving together. So our emotions are really our sensations sort of gathering together and accompanying each other through our bodies. And they each have their own, I think, signature. You can notice many people can't because they haven't been really studying that, but you can identify your feelings, and by giving attention to them, they can blossom, but particularly they can move, because it's become so clear to me that the movement of our attention is the life-giving, the circulation of our attention has great healing power. It has great blossoming power to let your experience of yourself really blossom. And I'm going to okay, doing a little computer thing there. Speaking of attention, how attention gets distracted. What has happened for me as I've been recovering from my long COVID is that I realized that the biggest impact that it had on me was decreasing my circulation. And it happened just sort of like the boiling frog that, it happened a little bit at a time, so I didn't really notice. And still it started coming back, and I could feel zings and kind of a dandelion blossoming and things rushing. And so there was a much more expanded sense of sensation. So what in your practice of the loop of awareness, the for me, and I think as I'm noticing, when you combine that with sensations are a feeling. So, when Mary Oliver says that attention without feeling is just a thought, feeling, the whole feeling word, we could do a whole podcast, we could do a whole semester on that word feeling and how we use it and what it means. But what I invite you to look at is that it is sensations moving together. So if you're putting your sensations, like just notice some sensation that's going on in your body and let your attention land on that. And then you might notice, I notice immediately that it wants to move. So rather than just being there, there's a movement that wants to happen. And then I can follow that movement with my attention. So, for example, the other day I had this very strong sort of ping in my right big toe. It just kind of went boing, like my toe had just gone wonk, and so I gave my attention with a kind of a what the heck is going on here? And I even looked down at it because it was such a strong sensation. I thought maybe some bug or something had landed on my toe and I didn't feel it. And when I gave my attention with my curiosity to it, it started to move and there was a whole zing that went up my leg. And I realized, oh, this is my leg thawing out. My leg is waking up and it's having a little bit of blah as different things are waking up. So what I've seen, and I'd love for you to experiment with it, particularly inside, because we give so much of our attention out here and then maybe come back a little bit, to let this week really be rich with giving your attention to your own inner world. And when you put your curiosity together with your attention and you actually let yourself be with the sensation will move. And it will often move throughout your body, but it'll move in that your thoughts open up. You get a new sense of what this is about, but also of the journey that your body is going through. And I've found that moving my attention to, it's really a facing move from our FACT, facing, choosing, facing, accepting, choosing, and taking action. It's almost all of these attention moves are facing. And that's not very popular in the culture right now. There's just all kinds of things to keep you from noticing what's actually going on. So it's quite revolutionary to give attention to something going on in you. And, I'm just thinking about Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore, and that, a lot of what they're doing is they're moving around in the forest, is they're withing, they're being with each other. And when you do that to your own sensations, with your own sensations, there's this kind of welcoming and expansion and blooming that happens. So that's what I invite you to play with. And if you've noticed something that shifted or opened up as you were just playing with that today, go ahead and write it in the chat so that you can share it with others. So the experience of treating your own insides as the mystery and the adventure that's always going on in you, rather than treating yourself as a hunk of meat or as a job, or as a self-improvement project. If you go, so the move is really a key. You don't have to make it any more complicated than that. It's just like, So when I was experiencing my toe, I actually went, and then I remembered some other times in my life, like one time where my big toe just turned black, and then the next day, I found out that my mentor had died, and So, there are all of these mysterious ways that our body knows what is going on, what's coming, what's opening up. And so when you explore that, it's your own. I was just having the image of the Odyssey, which is very popular right now. This is your own inner Odyssey, and also the ways that we get in our own way of really being at home with ourselves, the way that we block our being with ourselves. So we have as much going on in here as we can see in the movies out there. So I invite you into your own inner movie of, wow, what's happening today? And whoa, and how can I participate with this energy? And where is this wanting to go? And so that kind of curiosity and humming will continue to enliven your insides, and then your ability to be your full self in the world. Because the other thing I'm starting to focus on this week is that in the contempt matrix that's going on in our country right now, the main thing that you're being asked to do is to diminish yourself, is to get smaller. So is to cringe, is to apologize, is to go passive. And so your open exploration of your insides makes you fully present and in your own authority and in your own sovereignty. And as you're moving around in the world, then you're rippling that out. You're rippling out the invitation of inviting people to be in their full selves. And I think that's much more powerful than anything that we say, because see, that's attention without a feeling. And that's a lot of what's going on right now, is sort of a na 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 na. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. You did it more. Na na na. But it's going on at a global level, so it's not quite so funny when it's going on, between us and Iran, and so. And the other thing that I'm so aware of is that our loop of awareness illuminates what's actually true. So when you're noticing, you're opening up to what's actually going on rather than what's covering up what's going on. And your body always knows what's going on before your head does, because sensations from your body get there 4 to 10 times faster than what's going on in your mind. So your body gets there first. So if you go, it won't be a thought, it's going to be a body thought. It'll be a combination of sensations. So I've spent years getting familiar with, that one, that particular thought, there's some sadness that I haven't identified yet. So knowing your own inner vocabulary is something that you can keep playing with and opening up to lifelong. And it's not as if it's supposed to get you somewhere. For me, the main benefit, and I think for you also as you're practicing, is that you're going to be enjoying just more of the flow of aliveness, the rapture of being alive. And so regardless of what's going on in the world, you are in charge of your own aliveness and how you ripple your aliveness both inside, but how you show up in the world. And so to be radically alive is, and walking around in the world like that is really revolutionary. So you get to enjoy being alive while distributing aliveness in the world. So this brings me to our card for today. And I'd love for Michelle, for you to bring that up for us. All right. So this is so great, because when I look at this, and then I tune into my own body, this reminds me of sensations and the flowing of sensations in my own body. And I love how there's connection and there's weaving and there's things popping up. And so as you're gazing at this, giving your attention to it, let your attention come to where in your body are you receiving this. So what lights up in your body as you're looking at this card, and then giving your generous curious attention to that and letting yourself flow back and forth while I read first a pretty long sentence and then a question. I change agreements that are not working by noticing the jangle, communicating and listening to feelings involved, and making a new, clear agreement. Sounds simple, huh? I change agreements that are not working by noticing the jangle, communicating and listening to feelings involved, and making a new, clear agreement. Then the question is, how can I consciously change agreements that are not working? So we have, I think that's a hedgehog. We have the hedgehog to represent, the prickliness that sometimes happens with agreements. And then also, dragonflies, flying around, like just gliding over it. And so there's some symbology there, some things that might light up your own inner meaning. But this card has to do with, I think, well, all of the things about agreement are tricky, but this one I was thinking, this is really the big one. But then when I come to another card, I go, oh no, this is really the big one. But the particular challenge for this card, I'm going to leave it up for just a little bit because I think it will, I think, stimulate some inner exploration. Most of the time, people, when agreements are not working, people gloss over, ignore it, get mad at the other person but never say anything. Feuds have happened over agreements that have not worked, that have not been handled. And I think many people just don't know how to do that, or think, oh, I'm picky. If I say something, I'm just, being sort of a Scrooge, and they did their best, and but I know that you have friends, for example, that are always late and make an agreement and then just basically don't keep it. And so what happens when you have an agreement and you don't keep it is that you see those hands that are reaching toward each other, they never connect. So when you don't keep an agreement, you lose the connection. And then things go off in directions that you may not have planned and you may not know because you've lost your connection. So handling an agreement that is not working, or for me, this is also an agreement, and a broken agreement. So if and the one that I always use, we can come back to the big group now. The one that, the example that I think is so common that we can use is that you've agreed to meet somebody, like you're going to meet for coffee, you're meeting for lunch, you're going to meet at 1, and you're there and they're not. Or they're there and you're not. But it's most often, those of us who are aware of agreements, are most likely to be invited to go into the policeman role of, you didn't make this agreement and I'm mad at you. And, and then the other person gets to be the victim, or gets to be, oh, I tried really hard, but, all of this stuff happened. Or the hero, well, next time, I'll take you to lunch next time, and then next time doesn't happen. So there's this missing of the acknowledgement that this is not working. So the first step is noticing the jangle. So this is where your attention to your inner body is so valuable. So what I often notice, if I have an agreement that is not working, I can actually feel my heart shutting down. It's like, okay, buddy, doors are closed now, so you don't get to get in. But if I'm not aware of that, I've already done that, but then I'm not aware of it. So I'm operating over the top of being closed. So, and I've also found that if I want to change an agreement, it's also really important to stay with my sensations rather than moving up into my thoughts, because those are always going to be involved with some sort of projection or, some old thing that I haven't handled in myself. So if I say, when I was sitting here and you didn't come, I noticed that my shoulders started to get heavy. And I found myself sighing. So I would just start with that rather than, you didn't keep your agreement, which is already, sort of a construct, and it's removed from my actual in the moment experience. And then I'll just wait to see how the other person responds to that. So if they get curious and they go, oh yeah, I could feel, oh, I was rushing this morning, that whole sensation of rushing. Yeah, and then we get into what actually happened, where things went off track. And then we can make a new clear agreement. But I think the most challenging is to simply face into and say, um, we had an agreement. When you didn't show up, I felt sad, but I wouldn't even, I would go to body sensations if you can. And I noticed my breath quickening, or my stomach started to hurt, and then just notice what they do. So for me, people I want to continue interacting with will be curious. They'll go, or they'll thank me. So very often, I don't know if you've had this experience, even with friends, you'll say, here's what's going on for me. They go, well, they'll do a what about you, or they'll bring up the last time that they got mad at you that they didn't tell you. And so for those people, I very gently sort of move them out of the sandbox so they don't get to come in and play with me anymore. But for people that I care about and people who are curious, I'll go, well, how did that happen? How did we get this thing all messed up here? And then each of us get to share, and then we make a new clear agreement. And one of the agreements that's worked really well for me over the years, particularly with meeting people, is I will text people. So if I'm, getting caught in traffic, I'll text them, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And even if I'm just going to be 5 minutes late, I let them know. And so what that does is keep the connection. We're still, I'm with you, I'm aware of you. Stuff happens. So it's not meant to propel you into perfectionism. Like, I'm always going to be on time, because stuff happens, flat tires, trucks, roads falling apart. We had one year in Ojai, we had a week where we had so much rain that all of the roads went out. So people couldn't get in and out for 7 days. So, all of the agreements needed to be changed. So, stuff is always going to be happening, but we're in charge of, here's what I'm noticing. My connection with you is so valuable that, I want to let you know when the light went out, or the fire hydrant blew up. I mean, we've had all kinds of things happen in the neighborhood, that I'm acknowledging that might have been an inconvenience, but it's also our agreement is our connection and our being together and moving into the world together for what a project, or even just a social meeting. So I invite you to play with changing your agreements, and how you respond to other people when they want to change an agreement with you. And most often people do two things. They forget. So, I forgot. So when someone, quote unquote, forgets an agreement, that's almost always a letting you know that they have not stepped fully into it. So what I will check, is this something that you really want to do? Is this an agreement that you really want to make with me? Because it's not working right now. So to have those deeper conversations, that then brings up the second thing, is that I'm afraid, people get afraid that the other person's going to get mad at them, and then they're not going to be friends anymore. So I would rather have with contact with a real person who's really present and can really be present with me, than to have a sort of a social, oh, that's fine, no problem, I'll see you next time, bye, that kind of superficial kind of connection, which doesn't give you any nourishment. So agreements also build trust. And they're the most important thing that we do that builds trust with us and others. And so if I have broken an agreement, I have broken the trust. And I want to repair that as quickly as possible when I notice it, or I notice that there's this broken sense of connection between us. So this is a big one, and I know I've spent a lot of time on it, but it's I think it's well worth giving an extended period of time for you to play with, because the benefit will be this open space of connection and creativity. When you don't keep an agreement, you really shut down the possibility of co-creating. And then when you keep your agreements, what really does blossom, even if it's not in that moment with the person, you get that opened up creativity, new creative ideas, new downloads, but also between you and other people. So that's why I wanted to start with agreements, because they're our foundation. We were watching baseball yesterday. Gay grew up with baseball. His grandfather ran a baseball stadium, and his father died before he was born. So his grandfather really raised him. And so he taught me about baseball, and I'm still learning all about baseball, and we really love baseball. And they were talking about what happens when a hitter is in a slump. And that they do all these kinds of things and experiments with them. But the master coaches they'll come in and they'll make a change in the way the person is standing, like to have one foot be 3 inches more, out to the left, and they start hitting again. So, and the sense was that, and what they say is that the change through the whole body starts with the foundation. And so change in your own life starts with the foundation of agreements. Those are the ground that you stand on, that you're able to build on. And so really lifelong giving your attention to getting impeccable about your agreements, getting friendly, knowing how to change them. And we're not finished with agreements, we have more. But whenever there's a kerfuffle, I first give my attention to what's going on in the agreements pillar, because a wobble there that gets straightened out has incredible impact on opening up everything else. So let me come now to, and if you have more things that you want to say about this, bring it to Mighty Networks, because we can continue our conversation. You can bring examples, little videos. So, I invite you to use Mighty Networks. All right, let's see what they've got for us today. All right. I love this. So guess what presence is? Let your whole self turn toward what's happening. See, because we're talking about this and we've put it up. So, I'm quite convinced that our consciousness has great power. And so we all brought up this particular presence of let your whole self turn towards what's happening. So we were talking today about what's happening inside. There's what's happening outside, and then there's what's happening between your insides and out there. So there's a lot of weaving that occurs. That it's not just two-dimensional. It's very, very dimensional. And so your turning toward can also be dimensional and opening up to spirals, opening up to turns in you, opening up your breath to where your breath wants to go. So presence isn't from here up. It's really a dance of awareness in all of those dimensions. And just the choice to turn toward is a wonderful opening. And connect is loop and shift your attention. So very often, like when I've gotten into a funk, and with long COVID, I would get into this, like I was just pulled underwater and just had no energy. So and it would be as if I was being scooped down. I'm seeing Odysseus trailer again when they're getting sucked down into the whirlpool in the middle of the ocean. That's what it felt like. And it seemed like to shift my attention was just this, impossible task. But when I would just simply shift it to another sensation, or shift to my breath, or shift to noticing the sunlight coming through the window, those little shifts began circulation again. And that's the basis of health. Circulation is all. And so if you're stuck, something's not circulating. And when you let your attention shift, things will start circulating again and go, oh, that's what that was about. Oh, I forgot to. Oh, yeah. So play, the wonderful play toss that you can use with anybody, anytime, is tell me more. So most often, I can remember in my early times of my relationship with Gay, I would express something like, I feel sad. He would say, well, just take a breath, just take some more breaths. And his listening was to fix me rather than say, oh, tell me more. So to keep the game going, the toss of tell me more, you can use anytime, anywhere, and including with you. But it's especially great if you feel challenged by something somebody said, and you wanna hurl, not toss, the tell me more. To actually be willing to get curious about what's going on here. The tell me more is that connection. It's that reaching out and saying, I'm more interested in bridging than I am in, for example, being right. So lots of fuel today for your summer enjoyment. You can grill it, barbecue it, put it in the pool, spritz it. So please stay and spritz each other with lots of love as long as you'd like to. And I look forward to seeing you on Mighty Networks and next time. Mwah. Bye now.